My favorite clients to find are the ones that have that like itch to travel with their kids early, because it's a trained, like just like going to a restaurant with your kids learn how to go through security at an airport, how to be a little uncomfortable standing in line, or how to entertain themselves when you're on the road and like things come up. They learn how to like try different food. Those are all learned skills. And when you wait, you're delaying the learning of them, but also you're not traveling, right? It's that's 5 or 6 years where you're not going to the restaurant because you think your kids can't handle it, but your kids can handle it. Sometimes it just takes a little bit of extra work, but they can handle it and they can be taught how to handle it.
Welcome to Imperfect Momming. Our children are constantly looking to us for examples. The term role model doesn't quite cut it here. We are shaping their worldview with every move we make. You see, it's not in the lectures we give or moments where we're actively attempting to teach them. It's in the micro movements we make, the unconscious ways in which we navigate life. We are constantly teaching our children how to show up for themselves, their friends, their future partners, and even their future children. So what can we do to ensure we are raising thoughtful, compassionate, self-aware human beings? We have to become them ourselves. No one is perfect, but we can all still be better, and it starts with self-healing. Let's get to it. Welcome back to Imperfect Momming. I'm your host, Alysia Lyons, and we have a very special guest today, Lee Friedman. Welcome to the podcast.
Thanks. I'm excited to be here.
Absolutely. So tell us a little bit about who you are and what you do.
I'm definitely an imperfect mommy, which is why when I read that, I was like, yes, please. Who am I? I'm a mom of 2. Maybe I shouldn't lead with that, but I live in Washington, D.C., and with my 2 small kids. I used to be a lawyer for 15 years. That was my sort of career, straight from college to law school to lawyer. And then somewhere along the way was wasn't even looking for something else, but got it in my head that I wanted to work and travel, and started to get a lot more opinions after I had my kids about what traveling with kids could feel like. So now I run a family travel company. So Mango Tree Travel is my family travel company. I've been doing it full time for about a year, and as sort of a side hustle to get myself to full time for a couple of years before that.
That's so fun. I mean, we have a lot of common. The only other place that I've lived outside of California is Washington.
Oh, yeah? When were you here?
I was a legal secretary in 2003.
Nice.
4 and 5, maybe.
Did you love it?
I loved the energy of DC. Like, I thrived on, like, I loved the metro system. And it was probably, if everybody I know didn't live here, I would probably still be there.
Oh, interesting. Yeah. We've been here about 10 years. We came from New York, and I was surprised how much I liked living here. And now all our people are here, and, like, our life is here. We had our kids here, so this is definitely home. But yeah, it's a
subway and the metro are very different.
They are very different. Yeah. And even still, I feel like since COVID, neither are used as much as they were. They were like core parts of our life right before that. And then you sort of drift away from them. And now it's definitely like an underutilized feature of living here, which is a whole other conversation. Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I hadn't thought about how it might have changed during or after COVID, but and then the other part that I love about your story is that you weren't looking necessarily, but it found you, and then you kind of found a need and you filled it.
Yeah, I think it is a more believable story sometimes for me to say, oh, I was a lawyer for 15 years. I wanted out. I was looking for my exit plan. That really wasn't it for me. I really enjoyed being a lawyer for a very long time. And then a series of events sort of all happened in a row that then made me find this thing that I loved more for this stage of my life. But it was never that I needed this like out from some horrible profession, which a lot of people sort of tell that story of leaving corporate for entrepreneurship. I didn't do that intentionally. I sort of just did. I'm glad to have done it. It was not expected, but yeah, it was a bit more organic. than that. Yeah.
I would say that was my story, that in 2010, when the economy kind of tanked, I was looking for something. I was laid off as a legal secretary, and I was looking for something that was full-time, permanent, and paid worth getting out of bed in the morning, and I couldn't find all three. And so I shifted into entrepreneurship, and then just kind of loved the freedom of that. But so tell us a little bit about family travel and how you make that more enjoyable.
Yeah, I think what sort of led me there was it came from a place of anger, which was I think,
and filled it.
Right, exactly, right? You're like, why doesn't this exist? After COVID, I had my second baby during COVID, and I always loved to travel. And I always, when I was like a young lawyer and I had disposable income, like that's where I found myself spending my free time and my money. And when I had my daughter, I found that I'm not that good at a lot of parts of parenting. Like I'm not great at playing. I'm not great at like putting the daily chores out of my mind and being super present in the moment all the time. Like all these things we strive to be as parents. But I found that when I was traveling with my daughter, and my husband, it sort of like brought out the best in me as a parent and brought out like a great part of us as a family. And I increasingly got more and more opinionated about like what we were doing right on family travel, and a couple times like what we did wrong. And then when I had my second child, it got harder to plan. You would like put your like hotels.com would ask you for like number of adults, number of kids, and you would spend 15 minutes like constantly putting in the names, like the ages of your kids. And then they would generate a room selection for you that didn't work for those children. Like, I don't want to sleep in a room with 2 double beds with my 1-year-old and my 3-year-old. Like, where are they sleeping in this situation? It's not in the double bed beside me. So I got really irritated about why I thought that the internet kept pushing me first towards like cartoon themed resorts, just because I was a parent. And second, that like the search engines really weren't designed to help parents who wanted an interesting type of vacation find the ones that actually worked with kids. So that's sort of my long-winded way of like saying that like what I wanted to do was create that. And so I created a website, first and foremost, a website to try to give parents access to hotels that would both delight the parents and also have the room configurations and the amenities that made it appropriate and fun to bring your kids. That intersection of like parents having fun on vacation too, and finding something that works with your kids. And it sort of evolved from there. So I have now planned custom trips for families. That's a big part of the business. And as I've done it, I've continued to kind of like dig in my heels on like what I think family travel can look like. And I think that often looks like putting you are part of the family, right? Like it's not just about the kids, it's also about you. Finding the right things to invest your money on, whether it's like the bigger rooms where everybody sleeps well. I could go on about it forever, but kind of these little details about traveling with your kids that can let you travel the way you always dreamed of traveling with your kids, and not just like the way I guess you're supposed to now travel with your kids, because now it has to be all about them.
Yeah, I love that, because I think that somewhere along the lines, I feel like there should be a happy medium between where we are today, where it's all kid-driven life.
Yes.
When you're a parent, and where it used to be where kids are to be seen and not heard, and right. But they had no say in anything.
Right.
So I feel like so I just joined a mom group, and hopefully she's not listening. One of the moms said, your grandchildren run the show, and it's like,
but why?
Right. I mean, you're the parent, so there, and I know there is. You and I kind of talked about human design on the backside, but like the energies are shifting.
Yeah.
In like things are changing right now as far as how humans human.
Yeah.
And part of it is that transition from where we used to be to where we are now. But I just think that there should be more of this happy medium between kids run everything and kids have no say. Like there's there's this partnership, and it's happening in relationships, or needs to happen in relationships too, where it's not just women do the housework, whether they work outside of the home or not. Women do the housework and the kids, men do the jobs. Like, that's not the world that we're living in anymore, but we haven't done the shifting of it.
And it's so interesting too. I have a lot of thoughts about what you just said, of like some of the things that I've seen when it comes to like thoughts about family travel are right in line with that. Like, we want to encourage our kids to get involved in the planning of trips, because then they're going to be more engaged when you get there, and you're all together going to have a better experience. But that doesn't necessarily mean that a kid says, well, I want to go to Disneyland, and so we all jump up and we spend $10,000 on Disneyland. Kids like to be brought into your world, right? Like, our best moments with our kids traveling have often been us showing them something we love. So I started with a lot of Caribbean travel because I really saw a need there to get parents away from like these big all-inclusive resorts that they think are going to be easy. But if you love snorkeling, like, my daughter is now an avid snorkeler because I've shown her how to snorkel, and we've taken the time to learn that together. And now if I give her a trip and I ask her to pick activities, she's naturally going to pick snorkeling because she now loves it. We now do it together. And like, they can appreciate, we just went with 20 friends to Belize last week on our spring break. It was amazing. And the kids were given choices. Do you want to go zip lining? Do you want to go cave tubing? Do you want to go see the animals? And they were allowed to choose their activities, but it was within the design of a trip that we were all super excited about also. And what a good way to like bond with your family on a trip where there's something for everybody. And that's, I think, probably the most important thing I want to bring out of family travel, is this idea that like every trip can be about everybody in the family. It doesn't ever have to just be about the kids or just be about the parents, and finding the right way to do that for each family is a little bit different, but there are like sort of things in common that I've seen really help elevate the experience for families. And that's what I'm trying to sort of like help other parents find.
Yeah, no, it's fun. And I don't think that I don't know how many parents were like my mom specifically, but she would tell me, like, you don't go to a restaurant from the time that you have an infant to the time that they're 5 and they can sit on their own. And I'm like, that's not how I roll.
Yeah. That's another big too, like this idea that we have to wait. There's a lot. My favorite clients to find are the ones that have that like itch to travel with their kids early, because it's a trained, like, just like going to a restaurant with your kids learn how to go through security at an airport, how to be a little uncomfortable standing in line, or how to entertain themselves when you're on the road and like things come up. They learn how to like try different food. Those are all learned skills. And when you wait, you're delaying the learning of them, but also you're not traveling, right? It's that's 5 or 6 years where you're not going to the restaurant because you think your kids can't handle it, but your kids can handle it. Sometimes it just takes a little bit of extra work, but they can handle it, and they can be taught how to handle it.
That's our job, to teach them how to do things. And it's actually harder to teach a child at 5 how to sit and behave in a restaurant than it is if they're, brought up in the restaurant. We don't stand on our chair, we sit down, and we don't throw things at other people. We sit down, keep our hands to ourselves, it's this whole like wait until the right time. Like, there's no right time. And I'm guilty of this, because I thought, it'll be so much easier to have my son eat healthier foods when he's older, so I can explain to him that like the healthier foods are good for his body. Yeah, that backfired hardcore.
Hardcore. You're not alone.
That didn't happen the way that I imagined.
Yeah, I have. And there's also like, I have increasingly, I know travel also, it's expensive. It takes work. There's a lot that goes into it. But for those who want to do it, like, I was just in Switzerland scouting some hotels, and there are some just like incredible family hotels in like Northern Italy and Austria and Switzerland that have these just like amazing kids programming, but also food and spas for parents, and a lot of these things. And a lot of those are targeted at kids like under 7, right? Like, once your kids get to be 8, 9, 10, you're not necessarily taking advantage of like the kids programming and the kids club. I mean, sometimes you are, but there was a part of me on some of these trips where my kids are 4 and 8, and I'm like, oh, we've already missed like the window that this incredible hotel was designed for. And like, if you start early, you can find the hotels and the places that really cater to like small kids. I was just like researching a hotel in Mallorca in Spain that's all about like toddler travel. It's like situated near a beach that's perfect for toddlers. And I'm like, my kids aren't toddlers anymore. I missed it, It's like some of the waiting is you actually just like, people just don't know like that there are such cool places you can go see with little kids that are going to be better if you're there with little kids as well.
I love that you're doing the research for people. And what I'm also hearing is that it's out there, like it's available, and you're not creating these destination places.
No, they're there. We just don't know about them. Yeah. Which is a cool thing.
Really cool.
Yeah. I what you said about restaurants, like popped up like one thing that has like really stuck with me. Can't kind of remember exactly where I learned this, but someone said to me once, I observed recently a friend getting to a restaurant with their kids, and her youngest child starting to have like a bit of a meltdown. And their parents' instinct was right away, someone needs to take him home. Like, he just can't be here. Someone needs to take him home. And I've learned over the years, at least for us, for traveling, like sometimes that initial arrival moment in a new situation for kids, we've all experienced this, right? Where like the kids aren't sure what to do. They're not sure where to go. They're not sure how to play or how to sit still. And sometimes you have to push through this like 15 or 20 minutes of like discomfort. And then everybody kind of like mellows and settles in, and you find a toy that works, or they find something to play with over in the corner, or they get the coloring out. And I don't know, there's something about that like works for me from a parenting perspective. Like, I've noticed that a lot of like, I've learned this from travel, and I've learned this from restaurants and parenting with your kids, of sort of like sometimes you muddling through those moments of discomfort with them, like gets you to that place where you're going to have a good experience. But it's really easy sometimes to think like, just eject. Like we can't go to restaurants. My kid has a meltdown the minute we arrive. And it's like, okay, well, have you given him 30 minutes to like settle in? I think that's a lesson that I learned somewhere along the way that like really helped make me a better parent in those circumstances.
Yeah, it makes sense, because if you think about, as adults, we've a lot of parents and a lot of adults have lost some of their creativity and some of their curiosity. I think is the word that I was actually looking for, but maybe some of the creativity too, but the curiosity, we've lost it. Maybe a well-meaning adult said, stop asking questions because you were driving them crazy and they were having a bad day. And so now we don't have this curiosity muscle anymore, but children have that curiosity muscle until you teach them not to. And so if you think about like walking into a new space, like we've opened up this curiosity, like what's going on over here, what's going on over there. Mm-hmm. And some of them are, especially now, we have a lot of, people on the spectrum, kids on the spectrum, and there might be some overstimulation, and it might be something that they can't handle the restaurant. My son was, when I think he was 18 months to 2 years, somewhere around there. It must have been, maybe it was between 2 and 3. I don't know. It doesn't really matter. But we were doing a family vacation to a summer camp, and it was family camp. So it was, everybody had their kids and everybody was there. And he would eat before breakfast. He was hungry before breakfast was served. And so he would eat. And then when it was time for everybody to sit down, he didn't want to sit with us because he already ate. But also, so he would go to the back porch where nobody really was. And there was a staff member usually out there, or I would follow him out there, whatever, so he wasn't alone or in danger. But what I recognized was happening is that he was overstimulated. And he couldn't sit there with all of it because he liked to be with
Good
me.
for him for removing himself from it.
Yeah, so he would remove himself, and I got criticized for not forcing him to sit and eat with us. And it's like, this is actually more supportive for him to be by himself right now.
Yeah.
So I'm going to let him do that. And so you're the parent, you know your child. So like I can take them to restaurants or I can't, or this is what's going on. Maybe they need some headphones. Like there's things that we can use where we don't have to isolate ourselves as parents because our children are struggling in this environment.
I don't know if you've ever heard of something called misophonia, but my daughter has it, and it is an extreme sensitivity to like daily sounds. So it's like often triggered by like mouth noises and people eating and like people tapping pencils and like so she wears headphones at dinner a lot in our house, and that's like she doesn't like to do it when we're out, but like I know that big meal times can be a real sensory trigger for her. And so we've had to learn to adjust. But you're right, culturally, sitting down to meals is a thing that we find very important, and I find very important, and learning to adjust when your kids have some sort of trouble with that, I think can be really hard. And finding ways to be supportive of them that still maintains like your own values. But I had a similar experience with my daughter on a recent trip where we were traveling with friends and the restaurant was loud and I could see her starting to unravel. And I sort of like gave her book and stuff like, just why don't you just go sit at this quieter place until our food's here, and then come back because but that can be viewed, you're right, as not teaching your kids how to behave at restaurants. When really you're trying to support them in an uncomfortable situation.
Yeah. And if we can look at parenting, everything in life is a learning experience. And so we need to learn our children need to learn how people behave in society. And we are their guides to learn those things. And so when we remove them from, I don't go to restaurants until we're 5, you're robbing them of the opportunity to learn that. And you're robbing yourself of the enjoyment of going to a restaurant. Now, if you hate going to restaurants, okay, don't go to restaurants.
Right. And people always say this thing too, like traveling with your kids, it's just like parenting somewhere else. And I like that, like makes me bristle. It's like one of the things I like sort of reject against, because I'm like, it doesn't have to be that way, right? You can set your vacation up in a way with kids that gives you moments of vacation. But even if traveling with kids is just parenting somewhere else, at least you're parenting somewhere else. Like, at least I think your curiosity point is a really good one. At least you're getting to see the world while you parent them. And I think surely there are some like added moments of like showing them that village or that food or that beach or that thing for the first time, that even if the moments are challenging, you've got these moments of joy and exploration mixed in that is totally worth it. So I like to think that we design our trips in a way where like families get a break, like I really am a big proponent of like babysitting on vacation and like finding just not, time away. But also, and designing trips so that they can feel relaxing, but also like parent somewhere else, like see how that feels. Like, that's okay.
Yeah. I'd never heard that before. Just vacation is just parenting somewhere else.
It's like that's a way to think about travel with kids. But like,
Sure. Is there a piece of advice that you want to share with moms listening?
I think my biggest piece is to like take the trip. Like, if there's a trip that you want to take that you're like, oh, I have to wait for my kids to get older before I can handle this. Oh, I have to wait for my kids to get older before, like, you don't, like, you can do it. And like, we can help. But even if you don't plan it with me, like, you can do it. Like, there are incredible things out there to do with young kids. And whenever you start traveling with your kids is the right time to start traveling. Like, kids can handle the overnight flight to Europe. They bounce back faster than we do. Like, they can handle the schedule, like, and you can handle it too. Like, I think that's my biggest piece of advice, is just to know that you can do it. And like, they won't all be perfect. Like, you're going to have tough moments traveling with your kids, but they're like, you can do it, and it can be more enjoyable because your kids are there with you.
Yeah. Absolutely. That's one thing that I would say that I really admire about my brother and sister-in-law. She grew up or had several years living in South Africa when she was growing up. And they have gone to South Africa with their 3 children. And the oldest one is 13, and they've gone 2 or 3 times in their children's lifetime.
Amazing.
And it's, is it fun the whole time? Probably not. But
but like, it's an
8-hour flight or whatever it is, probably isn't all that fun. But I know that they do have a lot of fun, or I would assume they wouldn't keep doing it.
And that's what I'd love to do more of too, is like, I have not taken my kids on safari yet, but it's like 2026 goals is to like learn how to help families plan safaris, because I can only imagine, like, just like all these cool hotels I found in Switzerland and Italy that are like very family focused, like there are safari camps that are like super family focused, and they're to make these things work with little kids. And if, you're a person that like wants to do that, like, I think a lot of people are like, I'll wait till my kids are teenagers. That's a long time to wait to take the trip you've always wanted to take. What if there's ways for families to do it earlier?
Yeah. I actually went to Disneyland. I bought an annual pass when my son was under 3, because then I didn't have to pay for him, because
that's a good time to go.
Get under, and he had so much fun, and I don't care that he doesn't remember. I remember. It was fun for me, and it was like I could afford.
Yeah.
For one person, I wouldn't have at the time been able to afford the annual pass for 2 of us. But and I have all those memories, and I have a lot of pictures. So whether he remembers or not, we had fun.
There was a great line that I loved that was traveling with your kids because they won't. I'm sorry. Not traveling with your kids because they won't remember it is like not reading them books because they won't remember the stories. And you're like, you read to your kids to teach them, like, because they absorb everything around them, and you also get those memories too. I'm with you. One of my favorite trips of all time was with my daughter to Colombia when she was 3. She doesn't remember that trip. We remember so many things. That was a really formative trip for us as a family. And we remember that, and we changed as a family because of that trip. And so the fact that she doesn't remember it doesn't mean that it wasn't a worthwhile trip for our family.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that quote.
Yeah, that's a good one. Write that down.
Is there a book that's been instrumental in your personal development journey?
There is, and it's not like a parenting related book. It's one of the books that sort of inspired a lot of the travel companies. So when my husband and I were not married, we were living in New York, and there was a book called An Embarrassment of Mangoes. And it's about a Canadian couple that mortgaged their house and bought a sailboat and sailed through the Caribbean for 2 years. And the wife who wrote the book taught herself to cook in like her ship kitchen from all the different markets she'd explored in the Caribbean. And they fell in love with Grenada. And that book caused my husband and I to go spend 6 weeks in Grenada when we were between jobs, which is really what prompted my love of the Caribbean. And it's why my company is called Mango Tree Travel, which is from that book also. I think it both inspired me that it was someone who midlife just decided to say, like, I'm doing something different. But also showed me that like a destinations like the Caribbean, which are just often seen as just like fly and flop resort beach travels, have real like culture and people and differences, and it sort of like brought me to that region. So that's been a pretty instrumental book in like pushing me towards travel and exploration, I think, for sure.
I love that. I think that any book could be instrumental if it's impactful to you.
Yeah.
Yeah. And very few people on the podcast recommend like parenting books. Sometimes they do, but there's been so many impactful books in my life, and I've only read one, maybe two.
Nice. Parenting books. I read 2 parenting books, and I was like, okay, maybe 3, maybe.
I found one, and it changed everything for me, and I was like, I don't need anything else. This one's
Which
good.
one was it?
It was the No Drama Discipline.
Oh, interesting. I have not read it.
I was having some drama discipline, and but to me, it was a personal development book disguised as a parenting book.
It was more about you than it was about them.
And that's the basis of this podcast is, better parenting through self-healing, because the better person you become, the better parent you become, period. End of story. Like it's all about healing our own wounds, and then we're not projecting those wounds onto our children and so on. So
I think that's, I've been going through like a bit of a healing journey the last 6 months, because I started my business when my kids were 1 and 5, and I was like a full-time lawyer starting a business on the side. Like, I think I kind of broke my brain, like, I'll be honest. It was like 2 or 3 years where I like barely looked up. And when I looked up, it was to parent these small children and like hope I was doing a good job. And so I'm trying to like reduce the franticness in my own life and sort of like settle into a world where I'm like not doing all of that. And part of the reason for that is because I don't want to be, an impatient, like, at my wit's end parent. But you're right. It's like starting very much with my own like mindfulness and ability to like relax.
Absolutely. Yeah, I love that. Where can our listeners find you?
Yeah, mangotreetravel.com. And we're on Instagram too. That's sort of like where we're most active, is on Instagram and the website. The website has a form just to fill out if anyone ever wants to plan a trip with us. But there's also a whole database of hotels that we're like constantly expanding now beyond the Caribbean to other places of sort of family hotels that we think are worth the travels. So hopefully it's like your used listeners find it to be a good resource.
Absolutely. I love that. Well, thank you so much for what you're doing, for finding the need and filling it.
Yeah.
For just sharing your wisdom.
Thanks for having me on. This has been fun.
Absolutely. So we'll have another episode of Imperfect Momming for you all coming next week. And until we meet again, keep healing. Bye, guys.
Thank you for tuning in to Imperfect Momming. It's time for us to step up and realize that our power is not in trying to shape our children. Our power lies in shaping ourselves into the people we want our children to model themselves after. Don't just do it for your kids. Do it for yourself. When you become a more self-aware, compassionate, and confident person, you and everyone around you benefit. For more information about me and my work, visit AlysiaLyons.com. That's ALYSIALYONS.com. And until we meet again, keep healing.